Well, welcome to the Coaching Life Podcast. My name's Pat Martin. If you didn't know, I'm remotely connected to my friend Coach Chris Stewart via Microsoft Teams right now. Coach, how's it going, man?
Going, about the same as always.
About the same as it has been for the last month.
It's going as well as social distancing will allow it to be.
Yeah.
I'm tired of this remote connecting. I'll be honest with you. I'm just tired of it. I'm gonna mark off a space with some masking tape here at my house and say, "Here, Pat, just stay 6 feet away from us, and you just come and you record." I got another microphone. We can do it.
Yeah. I mean, well, soon we might be able to gather, since it won't be over 10 people. So maybe hopefully as we go along in the next few weeks, that'll change. We've been using words like hopefully for a while now, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. Well, and by the time things seem to be moving, at least in conversation right now on the national and state level. So by the time this episode airs, you never know, we might have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that probably isn't being talked about as much, and maybe this is wishful thinking from a person that has no clue about the situation, or about science and medicine. But if we are able to increase testing at some point, if we are able to identify a treatment, which it sounds like there's a couple out there right now that they're pretty hopeful about, and they should know more about in a few weeks. But if we are able to identify things like that, it would probably accelerate things. So
sure.
that those would be big wins and in everybody's perspective, because there's some people that think, let's stay shut down, let's continue to social distance, and then there's some people saying, hey, we're starving here, we need to get back and get back to work and get back to life. So
it's amazing, isn't it, how adamant both sides of those groups are about their perspective? It's just amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's a very polarizing.
It is, and it's why I stopped watching. You're my news source. Everybody out there, I told Pat this morning, I'm done. I'm absolutely done. I'm finished watching any news. It's you have two very reputable news companies reporting exact opposite things and calling it fact. I don't get it, man. I don't understand, and so I trust you, Pat. So you filter out all that bull crap for me and send it to me.
I just try to absorb everything I can, and I think I'm losing days of my life doing it, but I can't stop. So I think
you lose days off of your life so that you can save days on mine.
There you go. Yeah, there we go.
You're my filter, my news filter.
Yeah. Coach, I obviously we've had a lot of time to think, over the last month or so, and a thought came to me that if you look at the Bible, and there's people out there that are probably listening that maybe aren't of the Christian faith like you and I are, and aren't of a faith in general, that don't have a belief in God. But the great thing about the Bible is that you don't have to necessarily believe in the literal translation to believe, to get a lesson from what you read. And honestly, that's why it's such a great set of books and a great piece of literature, and why historians and philosophers have read it so much over the history of the last 2,000 years or so. But I noticed that there's a lot of times in the Bible that characters have found themselves in isolation. They found themselves distant from the world around them, and sometimes they did it intentionally. Jesus would often go off on his own and spend time by himself. But the thing that I noticed, or that at least I'm seeing right now, is in a lot of those stories, those people that were distanced for whatever reason, it's almost as if they were put into a period of preparation to go do something really big.
I see where you're going.
It wasn't easy. I mean, Jesus went out into the wilderness for 40 days. Mm-hmm. And, that was probably very difficult to do, but when he came back, he was ready to change the world from a Christian perspective. So he was prepared for that. And I think, one of the things that we can do, and I hope that people are able to do this, is to take advantage of the time that we've had to kind of distance ourselves from the world and distance ourselves from maybe, the distractions that we have. And there were obviously the distractions a lot of distractions are still there because of, social media and the news and whatnot. But we are more distant than we've ever been, and probably of anyone's life here, that's alive right now. I hope that I and that you and that we can use that time to propel us into doing great things in our lives. And we've talked about the hard things that the things that we've missed over the past month and a half or so, or however long we've been. I've lost track of time. I don't know how long we've been. I think it's been at least a month, right? So, I think in recognizing those things that in our heart and maybe down into our soul that we're really missing right now, it gives us an opportunity to prepare to make a difference in those areas when life does get back to normal, mm-hmm. or whatever that normal is, or as normal as it can be.
Yeah. Is one of those things, I tell you, I'm just going to ask you, are you missing sports? Look, it's time for honesty here.
Let me answer it like this. A couple weeks ago, I laid down to go to bed, and the first thought that came to me was that I really missed track. Yeah, coach is shaking his head. I was like, wow, that hits you like a 2x4, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. Track's a spring sport.
Yeah.
I have nothing against track. I like track. I've got some good friends that run track. Got a really great friend that's been coaching track for years and years and years.
Yeah, definitely.
But man.
Well, here's the thing. The reason it hits you hard is because you're a baseball guy, and I'm a baseball guy. So, and you've been saying that,
But you got a week of coaching track in, right?
I did.
A week or two.
I got a week of coaching track. So I was an assistant coach for a seventh grade junior high track team. Mm-hmm. And I got to spend some time with some kids that I normally didn't get to spend some time with. And so that thought that, I missed track, it struck me as odd, because I would never imagine myself really saying that. And in addition to that, this thought came to mind too, that, I really am not missing the game of baseball that much. It was very odd. To come to that conclusion was it was confusing to me. And so I don't know if you want me to stop there. There's more revelation to this.
I hope so.
But the answer is, I think I've come to, I don't really think that I'm missing sports all that much. How about you?
I think I could somewhat agree with your last statement right there. When I say agree, these are personal opinions, right? This is personal feelings. So
sure,
it doesn't really matter if I agree or disagree. But I guess I could say I can sympathize, empathize. I feel that last statement a little bit and think to myself, yeah, you know what? I find myself there a little bit as well. I've been missing baseball like crazy anyway.
Right.
Because I haven't really had the coaching hat on since 2017 summer. And so, yeah, I've got that itch, and I've had it before COVID-19. And so now it's like a deep wound that I've scratched to death. But no, it'll come back. We'll be able to get to it. But anyway, I understand what you mean when you say you don't miss sports in general, at least from a standpoint of, I honestly have not missed TV sports.
Yeah.
When I consider what they've been replaced with, I guess is the reason why I can say that. When I consider the fact that for us in our household, TV sports have been replaced with games of Yahtzee and Monopoly or Dominoes or Taboo, things like that, where we're sitting around and actually doing those things that we, quite frankly, just wouldn't ever do.
Sure.
Wouldn't be doing if this
wouldn't
hadn't
have
happened.
time to do them, right?
Yeah. Well, wouldn't make time to do them. Wouldn't use time in that way to do it.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, when I consider what is replacing that. So when I say TV sports, honestly, I'm not missing professional sports.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. I'm not missing all the stuff that comes with it this time of year and everything. You're more of a follower of, NFL. You give me my draft information all the time and keep me updated on who's after Joe Burrow and who's not and all that. But
some of that's fabricated.
Wishful thinking, hopeful thinking. But I guess for me, I understand. I think I see where we're going with this, where you might be going with this, and that is what is being missed isn't necessarily the sport in and of itself, but the people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't, it was a little walk to get there. Because in my mind, I was thinking about the schedules and about the travel and about the time spent and even on a certain level, the game time and certain situations. And in my mind, I asked myself, could I live without seeing someone hit a triple again? And
in an organized game.
Yeah. Yeah. An organized game. And I think the answer is I feel like right now, the answer is to that question is yes. I think I could live without it. I'm not missing that part of the game. And so that realization, I continued to think off of that. And because it was, again, it's a very strange feeling. And,
it takes some cojones to admit that on a sports podcast.
Yeah, I guess it does. Yeah, I'll wear that. I'll take credit for that. But here's the thing, though, because that courage is going to come crashing back to earth because, and I alluded to it a little bit a few minutes ago when I said in track I was going to get the opportunity to coach a different group of kids than I've ever coached, and a lot of kids that I didn't know, and I was going to get the opportunity to build a relationship,
to mentor people that you've not mentored before,
right? And I realized in this discussion with myself that was really hurting me. Not having that. And I realized how much I was looking forward to that this spring. And that's, it's the relationships. It's being around those athletes, it's being around those kids. And when you think about that, all of that translates into triples. And into sprints and into long jumps. And, all of that translates into the parts of the game that I'm saying I really don't miss.
Yeah.
But you're not going to have one without the other, right? And I've just found out that more than the X's and O's, and I've been going on that this transformation for a while now of trying to and seeing the legitimacy and developing and developing relationships and mentoring, athletes, as opposed to just being a manager of the game. I think I'm getting closer to that. And I think the isolation, the distancing has allowed me to embrace that even more than what I was able to in the past. And boy, it's hurting more every day now that that revelation came to me. And I can't wait to see some triples being hit in a baseball game. Right. Yeah.
I think this is what is being said here is that all of this experience that we are walking through is teaching us what we love the most about sports.
Right.
And the answer that we give today is probably different than the answer we would have given when we were 23, 24 years old.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people are discovering what kind of, not necessarily what kind of coach they are. I think a lot of people are discovering where they fit, where they fall in that arena of coaching. Well, I'll use a phrase that we say a lot, in the arena of coaching a game or coaching people. And if you're not getting what Pat and I are talking about right now, if you're like, what the heck are you guys talking about? You've been inside too long. You're too sentimental. You're too emotional about this stuff. We just miss baseball, man. We miss it. I get it. I get that. I understand. But if you don't get it, then you're probably a coach of the game. You probably don't prioritize the people as much as you prioritize the game. And that's a pretty pointed statement. But I can say it because I've been there.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done a lot of reflection on just, the teams that I've coached in the past. And looking back on the time that I had to spend with those kids. And, it's just, in no other time in my life, I always have cherished those times. And I've always believed that I found both happiness and joy. And if you don't know the difference between those things, well, you can look it up in a lot of different places, but Coach talks about it in his book, The Coaching Life.
The very last chapter.
Yeah. I feel like in looking back during this time, I've experienced more joy and more happiness looking back on those relationships that I have with those kids. And when I think about it, I think about the kids' faces and I think about them as people. I don't remember much about what they did in the games. Initially, I can dig and I can think and remember, but the first thoughts that come to my mind are their faces and what their voice sounds like and how they, their smiles and things like that. And it sounds really corny saying it right now, but I'm being 100%, honest
that's what we decided to do on this episode. So it's going to seem scrambled. No, not be corny. just talk about, just ask the question, what are you missing the most right now about sports?
Yeah.
But that's okay. I have a scenario I'd like to throw out there for everybody. So since you and I are here talking about it, we can talk about it, but everybody should ponder it. Let's say, hypothetically speaking, and I certainly hope and pray this isn't real, but hypothetical. Let's say that this virus were to cause the world as we know it to completely be changed from this point forward. So in the sports world, let's say that we are no longer ever able to have crowds gather again, which means basically no organized baseball, basketball, football, nothing where people could gather in crowds. So if that were to happen, hypothetically speaking, and all of that was taken away from us, the organization of the game of baseball, would you still enjoy Do you think you, dad, coach, mom, adult, would still enjoy the game of baseball as much as you do today, or have as much as you have been enjoying it up to this point in your life? That's answer A. So if you're answering this question, that's A. Do you think you would enjoy it as much? Answer B would be, do you think children would enjoy it as much? Children 11 years old and under, we'll say, would have the opportunity to enjoy it as much. Because I think that answer would change as you get older, and as you get a taste of competing in front of crowds, and as you get a taste of high school ball, college ball, I think it would get harder for that person. But do you think if all of that were stripped away, because you cannot take away the game of baseball. It's here. It's not going away. I mean, right. Baseball is something that we all know. As much as you try to change it, it is what it is, and it has been for hundreds of years. So you can't get rid of it. If people want to go out and play it, they're going to go out and play it. But would they enjoy it as much if it weren't being played the way that we have known it to be played?
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, from my perspective, I think that what you would see is a
do you love baseball? Yeah. Do you love baseball, or do you love all the things that baseball gives you? John Piper, who's a famous pastor in Minneapolis, Minnesota, wrote a book called God is the Gospel. And he made a similar analogy on a much larger scale, a much grander, more eternal scale than what we're talking about here. We're talking about baseball. But he made an analogy that made me ponder and think for the rest of my life about this. And that is, Christians talk a lot about going to heaven, wanting to go to heaven, talk a lot about eternity, talk a lot about the gifts that God gives us. And he said, what if you got to heaven? So I want to ask a question to all you Christians. What if you got to heaven and it was not like what you expected? None of your family members were there. There was no mansion, streets of gold. There was none of the stuff that you perceive in your mind of what you think heaven's going to be. But what you do have is the promise of spending all eternity with God, his presence. He is there. Would you still want to go? And then you discover real quick what your greatest priority in following God is. Is it because you really love him, or is it because you love all the stuff that he can give you?
All right.
And I think that this analogy, again, a much smaller scale with baseball, is what I'm trying to say. Do I love baseball? And do I love coaching baseball? Do I love being around the game? Or do I love traveling to tournaments and staying in hotels? And do I love designing uniforms and buying 3 different versions of it and all of that? Do I enjoy the stuff that comes with it?
Yeah. I think eventually what you end up, because, if there's no fans over an extended period of time, Major League Baseball would change. I would almost say it would become obsolete.
You wouldn't be able to pay anybody. The fans,
right.
Fans are paying the salaries. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, I know they make money off TV, sure. and that can own them, but they wouldn't be able to pay them as much, so it wouldn't be as a significant thing. Our lives wouldn't be able to be built around the pursuit of that dream. That dream wouldn't be as great because it's not being played in front of a bunch of fans like you insinuated. I think what you're left with, basically, you would be taking steps back into history, and you'd be left with just that raw component of the game of sandlot baseball and sand, wiffle ball or whatever it is that, stick ball, whatever it was that kids started playing in alleyways and open fields and things like that when they're growing up. And to add to your question, in those scenarios, would we still love the game as much? Would we still want to go out and watch, kids play? Would
I still be as passionate about helping kids with their swing?
Yeah.
Would I still be as passionate about helping them be as good as they can possibly be if that next level dream were taken away?
Yeah. I think
you learn a lot about yourself when you ask yourself these kinds of questions. You learn a lot about your coaching motivations when you ask yourself these questions.
Well, I'll confess right now that, my two sons have been throwing, they've been fielding, they've been swinging, and I would like to say that this is because of a certain amount of maturation in my life to this point, but the difference has been too significant too quick. So I know that it's because we're in the situation that we're in now that I'm feeling this way. When they're making mistakes, it doesn't hurt me nearly as much right now. I don't know
that's not a bad
why.
thing.
It's not a bad. Well, it depends on how you look at it, I guess.
Good or bad, I guess. Yeah.
It's a humbling thing because you think, why in the world did that mean so much to me at one point? And here's the thing. I think it's made me a better communicator, a better coach to my kids, because now when we're conversing about stuff like this, about mistakes that they're making when we're out working, just us, the conversation is more positive in both ways. They're receiving it better. I'm presenting it better. I'm receiving their thoughts more. It's just, it's a better form of communication. And it all starts because I'm not angry because they made a mistake that they shouldn't make. And I think part of that because I've thought about this a ton. I can't tell you how much I've been thinking about this. Part of that is I know they have time.
I was going to say this. Yeah. I wonder how much of that has to do with the fact that there's no end outcome that you're pushing them toward.
Exactly. I think that's what it is.
Yeah. If they don't want to listen right now, if we don't, if you're not receiving my coaching right now, no big deal. We'll come out here. We'll do it again sometime when you're ready to receive it. But there's such that urgency. There's such an urgency in normal life of baseball, or normal life of coaching our kids, they got to get it right now, because if they don't get it right now, we're going to lose this game. We're going to lose this tournament. You're not going to get a scholarship. And so we become crazy parent because of the urgency of that. And you're out in the yard right now. Yeah. You want to help them. You want to make sure that the swing is still solid, but if he's not willing to hear it, I know we got tomorrow also to do the same thing. There's no game tomorrow. There's no pressure in that sense. There's no promise of anything. There's no outcome that we're looking for other than just get a little bit better today than you were yesterday. And if you're not willing to receive it, then there's not much I can do about it. So I'm okay with that. Walk away.
Yep.
It's hard to do when you got a bottom line that you're trying to.
Yeah, when in 3 weeks you got a big important game you're going to be playing, opening day of 10U baseball. That changes the story. But when you don't know when that's coming, the pressure is off.
Yeah,
and that's kind of a sad thing to say, but it's real. I feel it. I definitely feel it. And I've kind of sprinkled those thoughts into our last few episodes with guests, and I've been asking our guests about things like that. But I noticed just in myself that I'm seeing things differently.
I think we all will. I really hope that that's one of the major positive outcomes that comes out of this, and that is that we all will see things differently when we go back to coaching these kids.
Yeah, let me ask everyone out there, right now, would you, if you can make the trade and everything would go back, to the way it was last spring right now, if you can make this trade, if your child, I don't know how, different people have different ages of children, obviously, but, say people with young children or people with high school children, because, hey, right now, I really feel for high school students because seniors, they're missing out on a significant part of their life. It's not just,
the people who have kids that are seniors in high school, they're going to answer this question completely different. They're going to answer it, oh, heck yeah, I'd go back.
Yeah.
And I would too. There's no way I'd want it.
So here's the deal. You're going to play 15 games, 20 games. In 3 of those games, the officials are just going to cheat like crazy for the other team. They're going to call everything against you. And you're really not going to have a chance to win just because every call is going to go against you, and they're going to do it deliberately, and they're going to do it, and then they're not going to hide it. Would you take it? Would you take those 3 games right now with a happy face for the other 17 or the other 12 that you get to play? And I think the answer is yeah. Right now, yes, take it. You know what I mean? There's no thought about it. And the point,
and you may not even yell at the ump.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm getting at, because how important are the things that we make important? Yeah. And I hope we are able to see those, to differentiate between what's really important when we're watching our kids and coaching these kids. Because like I've said in previous episodes, we've all done, we're all guilty of it, but I'm really good at rationalizing it, justifying my actions. And
yeah, we've spent a lot of time on this podcast. We've been doing this for a year now, and we've spent a lot of time on this podcast talking about asking that very question. What would you do if, can you imagine a time when everybody is just happy to be there, when everyone is just enjoying one another, coaches are cordial to one another and not cutthroat? We're not assuming that the umpire and the officials are out to get us. We're just enjoying being there and watching our kids and enjoying being part of the game. I'm wondering if we're not going to be able to see that in reality here soon. The first time somebody gets a chance to get on the field, I got a feeling there's going to be a lot less bickering and a lot less of that petty stuff that we see. And I'm thankful for that. I'm grateful for that. If this has caused that, then fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. And it's something that was impossible.
Oh yeah, right. We couldn't do it, could we?
That's a fake reality. There's no way.
Great point.
You'll ever experience an environment where everyone's just happy to be there watching kids play baseball. Does not happen. There's always at least one person.
Yeah,
right?
We've had people tell us that it's impossible, never going to happen. You guys are talking about a pipe dream. Well, does it take something like this to make the impossible possible, or make the impossible reality?
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that that's the way it's going to be when we finally are able to do it. The only question I have, and the challenge that I hope everyone embraces right now, is that we don't fall back into taking it for granted.
How long will it last? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. We know human nature enough.
Very conscious about. I know I will.
Reminding myself, reminding even others. Let's hold one another accountable to this, sports folks. Let's hold one another accountable to it. Let me ask you a more practical question here. Let's get less philosophical here. We live in middle America. You and I, we live in flyover country. What's the talk like? What's baseball like? What plans are being made? You've always been a commissioner in your local league, the Big Bend Youth Baseball League. You had any conversations with anyone in your league about whether or not there's going to be a season this summer?
Not a lot. I'm trying to think back to what date. I'm not really sure what date. I'm thinking right when the stay-at-home order was issued. It wasn't a few days after that our league made the decision to hold off on any type of activity.
Had you had sign-up day?
Some of the local organizations, our league made up of several local organizations. Some of them had finished sign-up. Some of them had been halfway through sign-up. So we have had some sign-ups. They're not all done. Actually, one of the sign-ups was going to happen on a Saturday, and then I think the order came out and they canceled.
That's the way it was here in Athens.
Yeah. So right now, we're waiting till May 1st, and I assume that the week leading up to May 1st, the decision maker. I'm not real. I'm a vice president, quote unquote, in a local organization. So I don't have much say in those conversations. I don't participate in a lot of these conversations, but I assume that the week leading up to May 1st, they'll get together and make another determination on when they might start the league back up. And right now, I would assume, based on what's coming out, what came out yesterday, from the president, from the White House, and from Governor DeWine, this plan and movement forward to reopen things back up. I would say that not just, local baseball leagues, but a lot of places will be kind of playing it week by week or, 2 weeks at a time, just to keep their, the ability to have a season open. I think, I do know that from our league, we've mentioned, if we can get started by Memorial Day, we'll be all right. No problem. We can get a season in, no problem. I'm not for sure if we'll be able to do that, but so I think I just say that because that's the kind of conversations that are going on right now in our league is how long do we have to have a full season? How long do we have to make this work? And I would assume that once we get to that point, we would talk about then shortening our seasons.
Right.
And then, if we get to a point further than that, that's when you talk about, probably either moving the season to a fall league, which we have a fall league in our area anyway, or, just canceling for the year. So I haven't heard much. I haven't seen what the Little League organization has
on a national level. I haven't either.
Right. I need to look into that.
Well, we know.
I think they've been quiet. I know they've shut down, they're not having any activity, but I don't know if they've had any updates or anything like that.
Well, there's been interesting developments in the American Legion organization, for example, because a couple of weeks ago, on a national level and regional level, they decided to just not have their tournament. They said that there will not be an American Legion national tournament this year, which happens in August. There will not be regional tournaments that you advance to from your state tournaments to get to the national tournament. And so they shut those two entities down, but they leave it up to all the states to whether or not they are going to have state tournament, state play, regional or district tournament play. And we know that there have been, I think there's 20 some states or maybe even 30 up to this point that have gone ahead and canceled their entire American Legion season, kind of following suit with the national and regional directors. But in Ohio, where you and I live, Ohio American Legion Baseball put out word that they still hope to have a season.
Yeah.
So, there's some hope there for kids that want to play some Legion ball, I guess.
Right. Yeah, I think the key to that right there is flexibility. And at some point it won't make sense to continue with hope of having a season. That's true with everything. That's true with high school sports or, spring school sports. It would be true with summer leagues and the American Legion as well. But I think the best thing we can do is not make any decisions until we absolutely have to. That's one of the biggest challenges that leaders have right now, obviously. In reopening.
Well, the big question is, how do you know when you have to? I mean, it seems to be the big dilemma. Yeah.
Yeah. And here's the thing, people's not going to be happy, no matter what they decide, because there's two sides of there's multiple sides of it. Honestly, there's not just, they should keep it open or they should keep it closed. There's also, they should keep it open and do this as measures to prevent spreading. And, so there's all kinds of different levels to this conversation. And it's just the reality. It's the reality of most leadership positions, that decisions that you make are going to upset people.
They're going to be unpopular with half the people you're making them for.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't matter which way
kind of
you
like
make
an umpire, right?
That's right. If he's getting yelled at on both sides, he must be doing something right.
Yeah, exactly right. So, but all we can do is hope for the best. And we're talking about things right now, and if this doesn't publish for a couple of weeks, people are going to be thinking, "What are they talking about?"
So we'll tell everybody we're recording this on April 17th. We should mark these that way. So April 17th, this is what is happening in Ohio and in the world or in the nation, and our plan is to have this particular episode post on the 27th. So that is a week and 3 days apart. So we'll see how much has happened in a week and 3 days.
I'll make an official prediction right now.
Okay. Because, so by the time you hear this,
I'm your news source.
That's right.
Right.
So by the time everyone hears this, Pat is making a prediction. We will be experiencing what? What is your prediction?
On April 27th, this conversation is still probably going to be pretty relevant.
That was pretty safe prediction. Be a lot of
change in that time period.
Yeah.
So.
A lot of people, I'd say, I don't know what the percentage would be, but a lot of people, their experience with summer baseball is a local rec league. But then a lot of people, it might even be 50-50. I don't know. and we know that in terms of our listeners, we probably have about half and half. A lot of people's involvement is travel ball, and travel ball is a different entity. It's a whole different ball game. No pun intended, because there is no governing organization over travel ball. You have people who run tournaments, and then you may have a travel team. Some teams are part of a greater organization umbrella that have multiple teams and multiple age groups. But for the most part, travel teams are all completely independent of one another. And if someone decides they want to run a tournament, they can do it as long as they've got a place to play. Have you seen anything? I mean, like, we used to go to pastime tournaments when my kids were playing travel ball pastime, perfect game tournaments, among others. The Buckeye Elite, I know in Ohio, is a huge one, and Cincy Flames tournaments in Cincinnati and Dayton area also are. And also, they hold Cincy Flames tournaments up in the Akron area as well. I'm not in that world anymore, so I'm not receiving those emails, and I'm not hearing what their plans are. But I know it takes a lot of planning and a lot, especially the larger the tournament is, a lot of organization connecting with hotels and things like that. I got to guess that some of those bigger tournaments are probably saying it's not going to happen because of the length of time it takes in the planning.
I haven't had a huge, I haven't, looked into it a lot. So my exposure to it hasn't been great, but I have seen some communication, and I've received some texts and things like that, emails about tournaments that, my older son has played in the past and whatnot. But I think by and large, most of those, because the big question with those tournaments is refunding money.
Oh yeah.
Right. And it's tough because here's the problem. They've already spent some of that money.
Right.
To acquire facilities, to pay for trophies, whatever. They've already spent some of that money. So a full refund is very tough. So one of the big polarizing topics right now in the travel ball world is, hey, these teams want their money back. And at the same time, hey, we've already spent some of that money, so we can't refund you everything. But I think for the most part, from what I've seen, everyone is just postponing and trying to stay, keep an open mind, but just hoping that by the time their tournament is scheduled to take place, that they'll be able to do that. Because up to this point, there hasn't, most tournaments don't take place now. There are travel tournaments that take place during school season,
younger kids, not high school, right.
But most are still, even younger kids. Most will start,
June and July.
Late May, early June.
A lot of times it seems like they begin around Memorial Day. You have a big Memorial Day tournament you might go to somewhere, and then from there it's every weekend for the most part. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I think most they're just trying to hang on.
Yeah. We may have to have some contingencies, but if we can make it happen, we will. Need to build bigger dugouts, apparently.
Yeah.
Provide masks
we can
for
get
the
creative.
dugouts.
I mean, you don't have to sit in a dugout.
No, you don't.
To play baseball, you don't have to have a dugout.
Everyone just go to the nearest sideline to where your position is and plop down right there in foul territory.
Keep your glove.
Keep your glove with you.
Foul ball hits you.
That's right. When it's your turn to bat, you can make your way down the foul line.
Yeah, your parents sit in the cars surrounding the field. And when it's time to leave, no team.
We do that anyway during college ball because it's so freaking cold. Sit in the cars.
See, some of this isn't even different. That's right. I think that's the big thing that people have to do right now is they have to understand that the process is going to change and needs to change. And they need to think about, don't just say you can't. Think about ways that you can work around it. And then if you can't work around it, if you can't possibly work around it, then you can't. Right?
Yeah.
But exhaust those efforts to try to figure out an alternative. And it's tough because it's just tough to transition from one way of thinking to another. That's an obvious statement.
Simplistic statement. That's okay. All right.
It's tough to change from an iPhone to an Android, right? People have trouble doing that, or from an Android to an iPhone. So, it's going to be tough to change, behaviors and habits that that have been embedded in our lives for the past 20 years. So.
There is going to be a learning curve.
Yeah.
There's a learning curve with every new thing that you try. And so if you're allowed to go back and have baseball games, but you're told this is what you got to do to make it happen, you may not like it, but would you rather be where we are right now? Or would you rather be out there sitting in your car watching your kid play the game of baseball as opposed to sitting in your house working a puzzle with them. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. Just to defend myself, if there's anyone out there disenchanted with my I'm not missing baseball that much, you can check my text history with Coach Stewart. I am willing to wear pink underwear on my head coaching third base if it means we get to play baseball.
I asked him the other day, I said if we're allowed to go back and play, are you going to be wearing a mask while you coach third base? Are you willing to do that? And that's when you replied, you really did. Legitimately, you replied that you'd wear pink underwear on your head if we could go back and play.
Whatever it takes.
That's right.
Whatever it takes.
And I know you miss it, but I also know what I know exactly what you were saying. And I suspect that there'll be a lot of people who listen to us who will understand what we were talking about there in the first half of this show.
Yeah, I miss it. It's part of my life, but there's what my realization is that there's other things that I miss more.
Yeah.
And to me, it's baseball. You know, to me, it's sports, but it's just it's a different part of sports than what I've embraced for the larger part of my life. So
yeah.
It's a good thing.
And I think it's all about your personality as well and what you enjoy about sports. I mean, honestly, if I went another day the rest of my life and never heard anything about the NFL draft again, I'd be just fine. I could care less about it, to be honest. Things like that.
Coach, that's hard for me because the NFL draft is the most optimistic time for a Cleveland Browns fan. You see,
it ushers in the season of 16-0.
That's right.
16-0.
Hey, we're coming around.
What are you going to say? What will the Cleveland Browns sentiment be when the Bengals draft Burrow? Would the Browns champ be 14-2? There's no way we're beating the Bengals twice.
I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of Browns fans out there right now that are downplaying the significance of Joe Burrow going to the Cincinnati Bengals.
Of course.
And that's a mistake. So,
it's probably the same people who talk about how poor of an organization the Cincinnati Bengals are. They've been a bad team for a couple of years, but they're not a poor organization historically.
Well, we can get into that. I don't want to get Lucas retweeting our podcast here with negative thoughts, but I don't. Over the last 10 years, 15 years, the Bengals really haven't been that bad of an organization. Yeah. So I would say that. Yeah, I'd say they've been
they were strong in the 90s
winning the playoffs.
Well.
They didn't do well in the playoffs, but they're a good organization. You know.
Right.
So, but I have some thoughts on the why, and some of that why isn't around anymore. So we'll see what happens. Make no mistake about it. I'm not down on the Bengals for the organization. I have no room to talk. So, shoot. All right, man.
Yep. That should do it.
Have a good one. I'll keep you updated on anything I hear.
All right. Yeah, thanks.
All right, buddy.
Bye-bye.